Let's move to our next keynote profile. I'm pleased to introduce our keynote speaker, Mr. Shikhar Singhal from New York, USA. He is an expert in AI, data analytics, and insurance technology, specializing in risk modeling and intelligent decision systems. He will be presenting his topic on agentic AI in claims processing, from automation to autonomous decision making. So let's welcome Mr. Shikhar.
Hello, everyone. Let me start by sharing my screen. Hope you guys can see it. All right,
Yes, sir.
perfect. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone, depending on where you are. I want to first start with a question, not a rhetorical one, but a real one. How many of you have filed an insurance claim the last few years? And how many of you thought that was fast? That was easy. That felt like 2026. From a personal experience, I remember standing with a buddy of mine in the middle of a highway as deer came out of nowhere, and luckily nowhere was hurt, but we had to stop to get our car towed and to report the first notice of loss. And I was on a call with an insurance company waiting for hours. Yeah, that's the gap we are here to talk about today. My name is Shikhar Singhal. I've spent 14 years building the AI insurance solutions, leading data transformations, sitting across CIOs, CEOs of the company to talk about how we can change and transform the business processes with AI. Today, I'll talk more about why claims processing is important in AI battleground and what it actually takes to win it. So let me first start with some uncomfortable math. The insurance industry has been transforming for over a decade. Billions spent on RPA, hundred of ML models deployed, entire digital transformation offices stood up. And yet, the average claim takes about 15 to 30 days to close. The insurance industry in AI still touches only about 25% of all claims. The 1.3 trillion in operational costs still sits inside the claims and loss adjustment expenses every year. That's a huge amount. Here's the truth. And as I say this as someone who has built these platforms, we automated tasks. We never automated judgment. RPA replaced keystrokes. It didn't replace decisions. ML models predicted outcomes. They couldn't act on them. Gen AI created summaries and drafts, but it had no workflow authority. The adjuster still picks up the phone, the adjuster still reads the document, the adjuster still decides. That's not transformation, that's digitized paperwork. And the gap between what we promised and what we delivered is exactly the opening that agentic AI will build to close. So before we deep dive, what does agentic actually mean? I need to spend about 60 seconds here to be precise about what agentic actually means because this word is getting abused. Looking at the spectrum, every wave of automation has moved us one step further from if this, then that towards genuine autonomy. Rules engine, scripted decisions, RPA, scripted actions, ML predictions without agency, and Gen AI, output without ownership. And then there is agentic AI. Agentic AI is not smarter chatbot. It's a system that does four things that no previous way could do together. It perceives, it ingests your documents, your images, audio, structured data, and your structured mess simultaneously. It plans. It doesn't just answer a question, it sequences multi step tasks to achieve an outcome. It reasons about what needs to happen next. It acts. It doesn't just recommend, it executes across your core claim system, your billing platform, your fraud APIs, your communications layer. And it learns every exception it encounters, every edge case it resolves. It stores as a new pathway. Yesterday's exception becomes tomorrow's automation. That's the shift, not faster humans, autonomous systems. Let's talk about this is the tipping point, and the market has noticed. The numbers coming out of 2025 and 2026 are striking. Um, can you guys hear me okay? I'm sorry. Okay, so I want you to imagine a simple auto accident claim. Same claimant, same damage, two completely different journeys depending on who or what is handling. Traditionally, a phone call, a manual entry, a human typing while you're on hold. Agentic, AI voice ingest your incident details, validates your policy, confirm coverage in real time while you're still describing what happened. In the triage, your claim joins a queue, you get a next available adjuster, could be hours, could be delays. But in agentic, the agent scores the complexity of your claim in milliseconds, and it routes precisely a simple claims to the fast lane, a complex claim to a specialist. Let's talk about document review. This one hurts me personally because I've seen how bad it gets. Traditionally, adjuster spends about 1 to 3 days per claim just reading and extracting information from PDFs and photos, while in agentic, a RAG powered, which is retrieval augmented generation solutions, can extract the information, cross references it, and validates everything in seconds. Fraud detection. Rules-based systems catch patterns. They've been told to look for agentic AI, detects anomalies across thousands of claims simultaneously, building platform memory that human adjustments can simply can't. Now, the last two rows, the liability assessment and settlement, they are in gray and human in the loop always, because agentic AI doesn't mean human free. It means human focused. The routine goes to the agent. The judgment stays with the adjuster. I'll move on to the next slide. Let's talk about some of the architecture deep dive. Now I can spend an hour on the slide. Let me just give you a few high-level principles and move fast. At the center of any production-grade agentic systems is an orchestration layer. That is the brain. It routes tasks between specialist agents and manages the state of each claim across your entire lifecycle and handles exceptions. Without this, you don't have agentic AI. You have a collection of disconnected machine learning models. And the orchestration layer, you have four critical components: specialist agents, dedicated agents for first notice of loss, fraud compliance, and settlement. Each is narrow, deep, and fast. They don't try to do everything, they try to do one thing at an expert level. RAG plus memory, as I said, RAG being retrieval augmented generation. This is what makes agents intelligent about your business, your data, your policy knowledge base, your claim history. Cross-claim pattern memory, the agent doesn't start fresh on every claim, it remembers. System integrations. This is where the most implementations struggle. Agentic AI has to be API first. It has to talk to your core claim system, your claim centers, your billing systems, your fraud detection APIs, your communication layer. If it can't integrate, it can't act, and you'll just stand alone create a system where nobody would want to go. And finally, the guardrail agents. This is the piece people forget the most. Agents that monitor other agents, bias, drift detection, audit log generation, your governance infrastructure. And at the bottom, you'll see the human escalation layer, high value claims, denials, fraud accusations, vulnerable customers. These never get fully automated. That's the design principle, not a limitation. Let's talk about some real deployments. Theory is useful, but let me talk about what it actually takes when something gets shipped. So here you'll see the three stories, three lessons, three companies, different approaches, three things you should take back to your organizations. Allianz, Project Nemo, in Australia 2025, the scenario, a severe weather event, power out of for 20 hours across Adelaide, thousands of homeowners filing food spoilage claims, all under 500 Australian dollars, all routine, all normally processed manually, while the claims team is buried in structural damage cases. Allianz built a focused agentic AI solution just for this claim type. Simple scope, high volume, clear rules. The result, 80% of reduction in processing time. Customers got paid before the week was out, and the claim stayed focused on complex, high exposure cases. The lesson, start simple, prove fast, scale smart. The narrower your first agent use case, the faster your return on investments. Shift technology and access Switzerland. This is the full lifecycle play, agentic AI from first notice of loss to settlement. The results that Access CEO reported, 60% automation rate, 30% faster handling, 3% lower claims losses, and 99 plus percent accuracy in claims assessment. Here's the quote that stuck with me. AXA CEO said the reason that they had confidence in deploying it was the governance framework, not the model accuracy, the governance. The lesson, governance is an accelerator, not the blocker. Lemonade, you've probably heard about this one. 2 to 3 seconds from claim submission to payment, their AI reviewed the claim, checked the policy, ran fraud analysis, and then sent the payment autonomously in the time it takes you to blink. Now, this is the simple claim, stolen laptop, minor property loss, but that's not the point. The point is that customers who experience this now have the new baseline expectation for what insurance feels like. Every carrier that takes 15 days to close the same type of claim is now being judged against that standard. The lesson here is speed is the new trust signal, and the bar has been set. All right, let's talk about the topic that the conference brief asked me to address directly, governance, trust, and then the regulatory environment, because this is where I see the most organizations underinvest. There are 4 layers you need to build, not to plan build, but to put out on a roadmap to build from day one. That's model governance. Every agent deploy needs versioning, a rollback capability, and a drift monitoring. You need to know when your fraud agent starts behaving differently than it did 6 months ago before it affects your claim outcomes. This is an auditability. If a regulator or a policyholder calls you and says, "Why was my claim denied on February 21st?" you need to be able to reconstruct the full decision chain. Every model version, every rule applied, every data input, every prompt. And this has to be built into the architecture, not bolted afterward. Regulatory compliance. The NAIC AI model law is active in the United States. The EU AI Act takes effect in August 2026 this year. Colorado, New York, California all have specific AI bulletins in force. If you're deploying agentic AI in claims, you haven't mapped your architecture to these requirements. You're behind. Escalation architecture. This is the design principle, not a fallback. Claim denials, always human. Fraud accusations, always human. High value exposures, human plus 4 eyes review. not because the AI can't handle, because it accountability for those decisions must remain with a human. At the bottom of the slide, you see trust mechanism, explainability by design, confidence scoring or every agent decision. Tell your policyholders when an AI handled their claim. This brings transparency. These aren't nice to haves. They are difference between a system that scales and the one that creates a regulatory crisis. All right. So I'll be direct. In my experience, technology is almost what something that never fails. It's the organization. That's the most important part for any transformation. Let me talk about the human side first. The adjuster role is not being eliminated with AI, it's being elevated. The work that AI handles is volume, repetition, and extraction. The work that remains for humans is exception management, empathy, complex judgment, and critically supervising the AI itself. That's more skilled job and it requires a different kind of training. But here's the tension. If agentic AI absorbs all of the entry level work, where do the next generation and experienced adjusters come from? Why do they build the judgment to handle the cases for AI escalates? That's a workforce design problem that leadership needs to solve now, not in 5 years. And then the change management. I've seen agentic AI implementation stall not because of model was wrong, but because the team felt threatened by it. Your most important deployment asset is not your large language model. It's your people choosing to trust it and own it. Now the playbook. If you're in a room making decisions, 5 steps in order. One, pick 2 to 3 claim types that are high volume, rules rich, and have strong historical data, not your most complex data, your most frequent. Two, define your auto resolve rate and your human in the loop thresholds before you deploy, not decide. What percentage of claims should the agent close autonomously? What triggers escalation? Write that down. Number third, audit trails on day one, not week 6, day one. Measure what matters: cycle time, loss adjustment expense, straight through processing rate, claims leakage, your net promoter score. If you can't measure it, you can't govern it. Number five, scale with controls. Build your model governance infrastructure before you deploy your second agent, because your second agent will come fast without the controls in place and you'll be firefighting. Now I want to close out. Where does this leave us? The question isn't whether agentic AI will transform claims processing. It already is. Allianz is doing it, AXA is doing it, Lemonade did it years ago. The 87% year over year surge in deployment is not a forecast. It's about the fact that what happened last quarter. The real question, the one that I would leave you with is, will you architect it with trust, your governance baked in, or will you scramble to retrofit them when a regulator or a policyholder on an auditor asks? Because those two pathways leads to very different places. If you leave this room, do these three things: audit your data readiness, define your governance model, and identify your first agent use case. You'll be further ahead than 80% of the industry. Now, that's not a hyperbole. That's the current state of the field. With that, I want to thank you all for your time, and I'm happy to go deeper dive any on architecture or governance specific questions. Thank you, everyone.
If